Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The WBA ranking madness continues, and there is one ranking within the latest update which is possibly the worst ranking I may have ever seen. So at number 3, we're just going to get straight into it. See here on screen, Bogdan Dinu of Romania, out of nowhere, up 6 places. And bearing in mind, because I'm going to step through some of this, he was at number 9 last month. He only entered the rankings a couple of months ago out of nowhere. He hadn't fought for 6 months before entering the rankings, and before that had fought a couple of ranked journeymen, and previously had losses to Kubrat Pulev and Jarrell Miller in successive fights. So he's done nothing to no one for a considerable amount of time. Somehow he got ranked, but then now somehow he's up 6 places to number 3. This is absolute craziness, and it's like the WBA is just trying to outdo itself, almost on a day-by-day basis, a race to the bottom, trying to see what sort of craziness can we pull today and look credible and make off that, somehow this is, we're a responsible sanctioning body. Because Bogdan Dinu at number 3 is completely ridiculous. But it begs the question, okay, so what's happening? Because out of nowhere, he comes in at number 9. And this is the thing they'll just think that people wouldn't have seen. That Dinu out of nowhere comes into 9 and they'll say, well, he was actually in the rankings before he rose to number 3. But how could he even get in? But then how can he go up 6 places in 1 month? I'll tell you how. It's probably brown envelopes, and he's being lined up to fight someone. This is what they're going to do. It'll be one of the 3 or 4 guys below him, one of these PBC fighters. I mean, my pick would be on either Luis Ortiz or Andy Ruiz Jr. And the reason they want Bogdan Dinu up so high is that whoever ends up fighting him, they can say, look, this is a credible matchup. Bogdan Dinu is a world-ranked fighter. Look, he's number 3 in the WBA. But as we know, that doesn't really mean so much. But in terms of who he could fight, I mean, we've already seen enough Luis Ortiz tune-ups for a lifetime. The guy is, 42 years old. He needs to be facing meaningful opponents before the end of his career comes, which, could be any day, any year now. Probably not any year now. I mean, another year or 2 at most, you'd have to think. Andy Ruiz Jr. in 2020 had spoken about possibly wanting a tune-up before he fought a guy like a Luis Ortiz. And everyone at the time was like, why do you need a rubbish tune-up? Because his fight, it was meant to be happening with Chris Arreola towards the back of 2020, just never eventuated. Arreola had signed a contract and all that sort of stuff. We were waiting for the fight, never occurred. So it could be that Ruiz Jr. ends up having a fight against Bogdan Dinu as the tune-up that he wanted. Bearing in mind, he hasn't fought since the end of 2019 when he lost to Anthony Joshua, a year out of the ring in 2020. Some of that due to COVID, but some of it, as I've been saying, for some of these PBC heavyweights, they're expensive. PBC is not going to be putting on heaps of high-cost cards at a time where they can't get fans in to help fill arenas. So you had the likes of Adam Kovnatski, Andy Ruiz Jr. not fighting towards the end of last year. Charles Martin, same boat. Chris Arreola, they're all ranked here. So going through number 1 to number 15. So number 1, Trevor Bryan. That is going to change because obviously his fight with Bermane happened. Alexander Usyk, he's at number 2. As we know, he is the WBO mandatory. Potentially could be fighting Anthony Joshua, potentially could be facing Joe Joyce. There could be that fight that is ordered. Unlikely he's going to take some sort of big fight in the WBA. Why would he want to get stuck in this complete mire of rubbish with the WBA? Because it is just completely laughable all of the time. Not some of the time, all of the time. And how farcical is it that Bogdan Dinu is above Deontay Wilder at 4, he's above Luis Ortiz, he's above Andy Ruiz, he's above Adam Kovnatski. All of those guys wash Bogdan Dinu. As does Charles Martin at number 8, and you have at number 9, Chris Arreola. Actually, I think pretty much most of these guys, if not all of these guys on this list, beat Bogdan Dinu. Ajit Kabayot would school him. He has, and this is the thing, he's got a version of a WBA, regional title, the Continental Belt, but somehow that's only good enough for 10th position. But then Bogdan Dinu, who's done nothing to nobody forever, is at number 3. It really beggars belief. And then at number 11, I mean, that was the same day that these rankings came out that Stiverne was confirmed to face for the title. Obviously, you have to be ranked, so the WBA made him ranked. Just, in that sort of situation, again, he was Johnny on the spot. Don King had managed to maneuver Manuel Cha, Mahmoud Cha, whatever we're calling him, out of the way to get his own fighter, Stiverne, against another one of his own fighters, Trevor Bryan. So that was King's plan all along, and that's how it played out. 42-year-old Stiverne entered that fight, with 2 years of inactivity, but somehow, he's done enough to get ranked at number 11. See how laughable and ridiculous this is? And then you have someone who is actually a legitimate contender like Michael Hunter, only as high as 12. Number 13, Filip Hrgovic, 14, Frank Sanchez-Fouré, and number 15, Otto Wallin. And those three, that's effectively, they're down 2 places from last month, and that's because of the inclusion of the likes of Stiverne, etc. But you also have dropping out of the top 15, Martin Bakole, who won his most recent fight. That's a much better opponent than Bogdan Dinu's faced in quite some considerable time. And also Derek Chisora drops out altogether. So I'm a little incensed about this whole Bogdan Dinu situation, let alone this sort of Stiverne. Clearly King had orchestrated that whole situation for his guy to be fighting for a title when he didn't deserve it. Stiverne did not deserve to fight for a title. And Bogdan Dinu does not have any place being ranked number 3. How bloody ridiculous is that? Let me know your thoughts. Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.